tales for dark nights.
The following performance is a second-round entry in the 2016 Evil Idol competition, and you, the listener, get to help decide who wins. Like what you hear? Click the thumbs up. Don't care for it? Click the thumbs down. Good luck to all of our contestants.
Paradise. Written by Michelle Griffin. Read by Michelle Griffin for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights and the Evil Idol contest. Imagine a beautiful beach oasis of white sand, crystal blue water with lush, colorful vegetation. I take in a deep breath, accepting the clean, salty air into my lungs. Exhaling out stress and worry, at least as much as I can. We came to this island paradise 2 months ago with the hope of living free from fear and danger. You see, there were 10 of us on the boat when we got here. We all had names with attached pasts. So when we got here, we decided to rename ourselves as we touched the island. Since I was the leader and the first to get off, I named myself Xena. I have always thought that was a beautiful name for a warrior. The first man and second leader decided on Bob. Totally epic, right? It continued from there. Now, Bob and I were not romantic in any sense of the traditional word. We couldn't afford any such luxuries as romance in these times. We were comrades in arms, and when we could spare a few precious moments, we shared a violent yet satisfying passion of the flesh. There were others in our group that had paired as well, mostly due to we didn't go anywhere without being in, at minimum, in pairs. So the one we trusted the most is the one we had the physical bond with. This had worked well before we came here. After was a different story. At first everything was perfect, a little too perfect for my liking. The side of the island we landed on didn't have any huts or buildings of any kind on the shores, so we set up a temporary camp on the edge of the jungle, but far enough to stay out of high tide. We didn't sleep on the beach for the first few weeks. Experience had taught us to explore, but explore quietly, slowly, and thoroughly. As each day passed, we progressed at first, following the coastline and marking where we had been. We were looking for survivors, food, supplies, and any dangers to eliminate. The first week we found abandoned traps with fish in them, some discarded nets and fisherman knives, and a few more supplies in a fisherman hut close by. We even found a few fishing boats we were able to take back with us. Once we had started to travel at least 3 hours each way on the coast, we then started going inland. The plan was for each team of 2 to go down the coast 10 minutes from each other, then go 30 minutes inland to continue searching. One couple would travel up and down the coastline in one of the paddle boats, in case danger was found and an evacuation was required. So each day we made progress on the island, but each night brought unease to us progressively. We would stand shifts at night on the boat, but then started sleeping on the beach under the makeshift tents. We still had a couple sleeping on the boat, keeping watch in case of a quick getaway. Well, after the first month or so of sleeping, we decided to sleep on the beach. Noises were heard in the woods, and shadows were felt but not seen. The couple on the boat watched but did not move one muscle. They didn't even breathe, they were so intent on listening to what was out there. For those that were on the beach, they were awake at the first rustling of leaves. keeping just as still, with no breathing, just as those on the boat were doing, tense and ready to spring into action. After about a couple hours of this, the noise would move down island. The next morning there was a meeting on what had happened throughout the different nights. It was agreed upon that we would probably be facing the plagued ones, or wild animals. Now, the plagued ones are what you would call zombies, or the Walking Dead. All of us except two that stayed on the boat went to investigate each morning on the offhanded chance that they might have been wild pigs, or another animal native to the tropical island. What we found were, on some nights, those wild animals, but on other nights, we found a lot of foot and shoe prints just shuffling around, aimlessly, no real purpose, in all directions. We found some fabric pieces on branches with black fluid puddles on the ground. As we pushed deeper into the jungle, one day we found about 6 houses that seemed to be in a cul-de-sac neighborhood. Bob and I decided to split the group up into pairs and search the houses individually. 3 pairs of us found some useful supplies with some clothes and even some canned food to take back. Those were the empty houses. The 4th pair wasn't so lucky. They met with what we assumed to be the plagued ones, their screams cut off in gurgling noises. We had no idea of how many there were or how many were in the area, so the rest of us quietly hightailed it back to the boat, pushed off the beach, waited and watched for the next couple of days. Over the 6 months, all but myself and Bob have perished on this island. We know that the danger is high, but we have no other choice but to stay on the island due to a lack of supplies and gas. Today, Bob and I are circling the island to try to find a decent shelter. And it's difficult since the jungle is quick to reclaim its territory, so anything that would be on the beach or further from it would be difficult to spot. Bob, I say. Bob, I say a little louder this time. He's at the helm and searching the coast. He looks over at me, then back to the task. Yeah, he says gruffly. I know we haven't talked about it, but we need to. Yeah, we do, Bob says resignedly. About 6 months ago, I stopped having my period altogether. Now, up until then, I had spotted, but that was normal, considering all the pressure and stress for survival I was under. So at first, I didn't really notice, with the surviving taking up so much of my mind and time. But then in the middle of the night, a couple of weeks ago, I began to feel violently sick overboard. But after being here for 3 months, I've felt a movement in my abdomen. The sickness has mostly passed by now, but the thought of the cause is terrifying. Bob spoke. Look, we knew the risk when we got together, and hell, neither of us thought we'd even be alive right now, much less worry about being parents. He continued on. For now, you're not showing, and except for the sickness, you're handling it well. When we pull in, we'll look for a place to get medical supplies. I looked at him and thought, this is not the man or the life I would have chosen a year ago. I'm scared shitless right now, Bob. I am over 40 with no previous pregnancies and no fucking way to even know where to begin to be a parent. I wanted to just lay down and cry right then and there. Bob put his arm around me and pulled me in close while keeping on task. I leaned in, just enough to let him know I appreciate the gesture, but not enough to show any true weakness. Surviving was still top priority, with or without each other. I moved away to take up watch in the bow, looking for any sign of life or any dangers. We traveled for about 4 slow hours to conserve what little fuel we did have. We spied a marina with a lot of modern boats docked, but then we saw the plagued ones shuffling around. "Goddamn zombies," we both said in unison. We didn't know how many there were, and we didn't intend to find out right then. So we continued along the coast until we reached another marina with a small town behind it. We decided to take a look on the closest boat to us. There were a few plagued ones, but farther in town, so we could keep an eye on them. As we approached the boat, I took a grappling hook and knocked on the boat, checking to see if any plagued ones would come out. She came slowly at first, around the side, but quickly picked up speed. I took the hook and punctured her skull with all my might. Then another came around the corner, and Bob took care of this one with a slice of his machete. Down rolled the head into the water. Bob climbed aboard, kicked the bodies in the water, and motioned me to loose tie the boat. Bob searched the boat, then came back and motioned me on board. The boat was a nice one, the large cabin, wood trim, and furniture everywhere. The bed was splattered with this black ooze, and a gun on the floor. These two had decided to go in their bed, but not shoot their own heads. I don't even want to picture that scene. We gathered what we needed, checked the gas, damn near empty, probably from running electricity and the water purifying system. The only reason why they stayed was the need for gas. We secured the gangway from the dock so it could float and not be boarded. I said, "Do you want to look around here or continue on up the coast?" Bob replied, "There's a gas station right on the docks up ahead. I'd like to try securing that and getting fuel for both of these boats if possible." I nodded my agreement. And as we were pulling up to the station, I felt an intense pain in my abdomen, and I cried, "Ah!" Bob turned and looked at me, and then at my pants. I was bleeding a lot. I fell to my knees, crying. It was as if I was being eaten alive from the inside. Bob stopped the engine and knelt beside me. I'd never been pregnant, but I knew this was not normal. Bob pulled my shirt up and unbuttoned my pants. What he saw almost made him sick to his stomach. You know how babies poke through the belly? Well, this looked like the head was eating its way out through my belly button. I looked at Bob, and I knew I was going to die. I pulled my gun out and gave it to him. He helped me to my feet, and we stumbled to the side. We had one last kiss. Then I leaned over and screamed bloody murder. Bob looked away and pulled the trigger. Blood and brains were all over his face and shirt. My body fell to the deck. Bob rolled me over, took out his knife. He made an incision large enough to pull the baby out. He didn't need to pull it out. The baby crawled out, latched onto his hand, and started to chew. The baby was blue and black with no eyes, barely 6 inches long, but lethal. The baby had died in the womb, then changed and started to eat its mother. Bob scrambled away and just looked at his child and its mother. Resigned, he said, "Some fucking paradise indeed," then shot himself in the head.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, don't forget to cast your vote for this contestant via a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. By doing so, you'll help us determine who will become the next permanent member of our voice acting team. At the close of voting on August 15th, based on your votes, the top 25 contestants will advance to the third round, which begins September 1st, based entirely on your votes. Thank you for voting and for helping to spread the word. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm Steve Taylor, host of Chilling Tales, the podcast, encouraging you to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.